Happy New Year's Eve.
Hello, everyone. I hope you had a lovely Christmas. We're in that glorious lost week, if you've got it off work, between Christmas and New Year, when no one really knows what day it is. Nobody's pants fit anymore. And we're kind of looking forward to going back to work just to stop eating all the chocolate.
Yes, Quality Street. Had enough of that.
Yeah. Anyway, if this happens to be your first time here, welcome. This is Truth, Lies and Work. We are the award-winning podcast where behavioural science meets workplace culture. And we, of course, still brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network, the audio destination for business professionals. Sometimes I do wonder if I say HubSpot's name more than my own, but let's say mine instead.
Don't say it 3 times. Don't say it 3 times, otherwise they'll pop up, they'll appear behind you.
My name is Leanne. I'm a chartered occupational psychologist.
My name is Al. I'm a business owner.
Together we help you build amazing workplace cultures.
Yes, we do. But today we're
not doing that.
We're not doing that today. Today we're doing something a bit different. We've gathered some of the smartest people we know to share their predictions for 2026. And I guarantee some of these are going to surprise you, but I'll be honest, if you're looking for something which wasn't about AI, then this probably ain't the prediction show for you. Let's be honest, is there any prediction show going to be for 2026 that's not going to have AI in it?
I don't think so. If you are new here or newish here, if you've been with us less than a year, you might not know that Al and I have been doing these prediction episodes for the past 3 years. If you want to hear 2025's prediction episodes, go back to episode 159 and 160. And if you want to hear the ones from before that, you want to head back to episodes 71 and 72.
Wow.
I know.
A long way back.
I know. I'll be honest, so far we've got nothing right, but don't let that discourage you from leaning in heavily to today's episode.
Yes, our guests quite often get things right.
So what's interesting about this year's guest is we're seeing 2 very different camps emerging, I felt, Al. Some guests are feeling very hopeful about what's coming. Others are bracing for some pretty significant challenges, but they are all pointing to the same thing. The way we work is about to shift in some fundamental ways.
Yes, so let's quickly run through who we've got, and then we'll go to each individual guest and hear their prediction. First up, we've got Phil Agnew from Nudge with us. There's no prediction show that's complete without the amazing Phil. Phil is all about behavioural science and how people make decisions. He's got 2 predictions about AI that are going to make you think differently about how we interact with technology and each other.
Then we hear from Megan French-Dunbar, MFD, who's taking a much more optimistic view of where AI is heading. She's been talking to people doing some really exciting work in healthcare and beyond, and her take on job creation versus job destruction might actually challenge what you've been hearing in the news.
And after that, Erica Brewer, one of our brand new friends, she's going to be talking about something pretty profound, how we find meaning and identity. Now, she knows what she's talking about because she's a brand strategist, so she thinks about connection and identity for a living. She's got a couple of predictions about how people are going to fundamentally change their relationship with work.
Then we have Anthony Taylor, who's getting a bit contrarian.
Nice word,
Thank
chapeau.
you. I don't use that very often. I'm like, maybe I should use it more.
I'm writing it down so you can use it more often in 2026.
So Anthony, his words, not ours. He thinks AI is revealing something important about our organisations that we've been missing. And he's got some strong views about what really matters in the workplace. Bit of a spoiler, it's not what most people are focusing on.
Finally, Georgia Mary Hodkinson is challenging the entire way we think about productivity. She reckons we've been measuring the wrong thing all along. And burnout, well, that's not actually about individuals struggling with it.
So whether you are feeling optimistic or slightly terrified about 2026, we've got perspectives here that'll make you think. So let's dive straight into these predictions right after a very quick message from our sponsors.
Welcome back. Right. Our first prediction comes from a friend of the show, fellow HubSpot Network podcaster and host of the UK's #1 marketing podcast, the always cheerful, always amazing Phil Agnew from the Nudge podcast.
My prediction, like probably most people's prediction on today's show, is to do with AI, because what else is there to predict other than AI? I have 2 predictions, actually. Both of them are based around a bit of psychology, because that's where my head's usually at. I'm often reading behavioural science journals and figuring out how people make decisions. The first one is this idea that I think AI, come next year, will start to be very clear in terms of showing it's working. So right now, it sort of sometimes says what it might be doing and then gives you an answer, but it doesn't really tell you what it's been doing. And I think AI companies will actually start to build tools to show the working of the AI. So when they write you an email, it'll give you, you'll be able to click a button. It will say, here's exactly why I wrote the email in that way. Here's why I used this line rather than this line. Here's why I said this rather than this. I think the reason they will do this is because showing the working will make customers actually value the output even more, because the magic has worn off now. So 2 years ago, when we were using ChatGPT to write an email, it was magical. It really blew our mind. Now it just seems normal. And actually, I think we undervalue how impressive it is because it just happens so fast and we don't really think about it. And I think AI companies will realize something that psychologists have realized for a long time, which is that if you show you're working, for example, people will value the thing you create more.
I'm sure I've heard an episode around open kitchens or something, which is where you can see the chef actually make it. Is this a similar kind of idea?
So that's a study by Ryan Buell from Harvard University, and he's studying something called operational transparency, and it's exactly that. In Harvard canteens, he sets up these studies where sometimes the people who are dining in the canteen can see the chef cooking their meal, and other times he places a partition between the chefs and the diners, and so no one can see each other. And what you find consistently is that diners enjoy their meal more when they can see the chef, when they can see the chef working. Interestingly, the chefs also enjoy creating the meal more when they can see diners enjoying the meal. So this is operational transparency. If you can see behind the scenes, you value things more. And there's other elements of this as well, and I think the one which is pertinent to the AI example is that this is, again, a Michael Norton and Ryan Burrell study. They did a study with Kayak where people were shown the Kayak homepage. They entered their search. So I want to do whitewater rafting in New Zealand. And Kayak, because this was back in the sort of 2010s, early 2010s, it took a bit of time to load. So there was a loading screen. Sometimes the loading screen just showed a wheel loading, and other times the loading screen showed it's working. When it does that loading screen, they find that people value the results more than when the loading screen is blank. Interestingly, if they show they're working, the loading screen can take like 3 times as long, and people still value the results more because you can see all the effort going into it. And I think because AI has got so fast, it's become so omnipresent, it's lost a bit of that magic, a bit of that shine. And I think companies will realize that if they actually reveal a bit of what's going on under the hood, people will value it a bit more for that reason.
So you have a second prediction.
Yeah, this one's silly. And it's for the same reason. There's this weird thing that happens when you realize something is created by AI, which is you start to devalue it, undervalue it. So there's this amazing study shared on my show by Professor Matt Johnson, where he shows individuals 2 pieces of art. Now, it's a podcast, so I can't show you the art. But one of the pieces of art is actually quite beautiful. It's really symmetrical. The colours sort of mesh really nicely. It's pleasing to look at. The other piece of art is a bit janky and it's not quite as nice to look at. So when people look at these 2 pieces of art, me included, and you're asked, which do you prefer? Pretty much everyone prefers that one which is nice to look at. I did too. However, the study then reveals to the viewers that piece of art, the nice one to look at, is AI generated, and the janky one is human created. And then they show these labels to people, and they find that when the piece of art is labeled as AI generated, we actually don't like it anywhere near as much. And we suddenly say, oh no, I much prefer the human created piece of art. I don't like the AI piece of art. I think this is maybe a bit of a problem with AI. And you see it a lot. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn because I'm a loser. And you see it a lot on LinkedIn. You see people calling out other people for using M-hyphens and clearly using AI comments and clearly using AI. And so my prediction next year, as a sort of fight back against AI, is that text speak is going to become a thing again. So text speak, you know how we always used to speak on texts when you paid by the letter and you couldn't be asked to write out a full message? See you late with an 8. I think that's going to start coming back or dripping into our vocabulary. I think there's going to be this weird value that people place on messages that have so clearly been not created by an AI because they're chaotic and weird and grammatically incorrect in some ways or cut short in others or meshing words together in a way that AI wouldn't. Previously, before AI, that would have just been nonsensical and would have looked unprofessional. But now, in a world where potentially so many of the messages, especially on somewhere like LinkedIn, are written by a robot, not a human, that'll become weirdly valuable.
If you enjoyed that, you absolutely need to check out Nudge. And here's the thing, right? You're already 90% of the way there because you've got your podcast app open right now. So press pause, type in Nudge, press follow, press play. We're all happy.
Well, don't press play just yet because we've got a few more predictions for you.
So I meant come back and then press play on those. Wasn't very clear there.
Well, okay, on to prediction number 2 then.
Yes, our next prediction comes from none other than the incredible Megan French Dunbar, or as we call her, MFD.
Megan is brilliant. She is an author. She's worked with some of the most forward-thinking organizations. And she just released a book called This Isn't Working, which, to be frank, if you care about the future of work, you 100% need to read it. Although, come on, let's be honest, you're clever. You've probably already read it, listen, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Megan is just one of those people who manages to be both incredibly hopeful about where we're heading and brutally honest about what needs to change. So let's hear what she thinks is coming in 2026.
I feel hopeful. I think we're going to start seeing more positive advances. I think AI is going to be used in not just negative ways. I think there's going to be ways that it's going to be used in like really helpful, positive. I think we're going to see breakthrough research, breakthrough technologies, things coming through that are advancing people's lives in healthcare and like actually using business to the betterment of humanity. There's an oncologist from Nigeria who is working with a friend of mine, and he is using it to do oncology research, and it is like rapidly advancing a ton of research that has been stagnating and taking so long over years and years and years. Like when we use AI on really deep vertical trenches of solving problems like this, like very specific oncology. And there's another one that was being used for deepening connection and like helping people who have like-minded interests to be able to connect with each other. And like people actually taking it and using it as a tool for good. That is going to, I hope and assume, create more jobs as we advance in research, as we advance in ideas and solutions and new ways of being in the business space. I do think there are some sectors that are going to get hit. And my hope is that with enough of these like deep vertical AI ways that we're applying it, that it actually, there's a ton of new jobs that are going to be created, again, in things that are advancing humanity and society. One of the places I was in recently, they were talking about a new AI application that makes accounting like a breeze, and like things that are like numbers based, where it's pretty black and white, and a computer can do them very well. There was one that was talking about using it for legal application, and like my husband is an attorney, but like that, again, black and white, like here is the letter of the law. And this was pretty much a like entrepreneurial kit to get started with all the business things that you need to know as like when you're a brand new entrepreneur, which 10 years ago I would have loved. And this woman was like, I used to work at one of the largest business law firms in the world, and I can do all of the setup for a company in 1/100th of the cost of what you would spend on a traditional attorney. So it's like fabulous for entrepreneurial endeavors and like all of that and advancing that. And then like the legal profession, I'm like, ooh. But then like with that, someone asked like, what do you think about the fact that that's probably going to be cannibalizing the legal profession and you are in fact an attorney? And she was like, well, I think lawyers need to be starting to see themselves in a different capacity. Like, yes, they need to understand the letter of the law, but they need to be more in a place of strategic advisors and like really thinking about what are the nuanced perspectives that you can bring that are from experience and from studies and like all of the amalgamation of information you have in your brain that you can bring to bear that puts you in more of an advisory capacity rather than like I am going to help you interpret the law, because there will most likely be AI applications for that. So most of the things that are like very black and white. And I think there's also like with this, it wasn't like all of the lawyer jobs are going to be gone. It was like, you're just going to need to tweak the way that you're thinking about your profession. And I was like, oh, that's hopeful.
How are you applying that hope into what that world is going to look like next year? Because it does affect us all. It really does.
just heard this last week. I was at an event and Vicky Saunders, who you should, if you haven't had her on the show, she's like a guru. Oh my gosh. She mentioned that before every progression, there is a regression, and that she feels like right now, this moment in history is like the bow being pulled back. That's the regression to like launch the arrow that is about to go further than we've ever imagined. And I was like, that's what I need to stick. I have to have that in my head as what is happening right now. And I think the number one predictor of consistent behavior change is who you surround yourself with. And I intentionally put myself in rooms with people who are hopeful, people who are like trying to make change, people who are looking at solutions, like people that are using their time on this planet to just try to make it better. And it's hard not to be hopeful when you're like looking at the extraordinary brains and wisdom and energy that is going into creating wonderful things in the world. Like there's a lot of bad shit. And you can focus on that. It's not, I have to almost put like horse blinders on right now and like just stay the course so that I can keep doing what I'm doing.
If that resonated with you, and I suspect it will have done, go grab Megan's book, This Isn't Working. You can find it on Amazon, or we've put a link to her website in the show notes.
It is a proper good read. She doesn't pull any punches, but she's also got this really infectious optimism about what's possible when we actually rethink how work works.
Okay, prediction number 3 coming up. Prediction number 3 comes from Erica Brewer. And if you don't know Erica yet, you're in for a treat.
Erica is a messaging strategist who basically helps businesses figure out what to say and, more importantly, what not to say. She's also the co-host of Trash Talk Podcast, which has possibly the best tagline we've ever heard, where cliched advice goes to die.
She also runs something called the Worst Kept Secrets Hour, which is a monthly meetup for people who've got something genuinely new to say. Needless to say, we are not invited and never have been and never will be.
Yes, none of this reheated talking points from 2016 nonsense, Al. Erica is worth more than that. And also, new things, new ideas is exactly what you're about to hear. Erica has 2 predictions that are anything but recycled wisdom. So let's hear what she has to say.
For a long time, our work was also a thing of identity. So in addition to our daily duties, the work was also being or becoming more of who you were. And that came with reward too. Like in focusing on that, you got a pension. But I think people are keen to the fact that those rewards just aren't the same anymore. You can't even rely on the consistency of a job or a career these days. So it's a shaky place to stake identity. And that's where I think deviation comes in, right? From seeing employment as this place to, figure out who you'll become, to seeing other places to do that work of identity or finding meaning.
How do you start to untangle that in an effective and healthy way?
My thought is that people will do it through places where they do have control, in hobbies, in recreation, in play, or things that we would think of as play, or within, say, healing practices, whether that's yoga or some other modality. I think people are going to foreground those as, quote, the work, making air quotes for people who are just listening. And it's the source of reward, right? I don't want to say it's a sure thing, but it's more of a sure thing than what we would experience in our 9-to-5 lives.
And what do you imagine the impact of that being as we start to reclaim our identity from more sources than just work?
I think we'll see some more articles in Harvard Business Review about people not taking their work seriously anymore. Nobody wants to work anymore. Getting labeled as a deviant, especially as, there's propaganda around the younger generations. But the flip side of that is that we're going to have to find new ways to motivate and inspire the people on our teams. And, maybe not bring them back to the dark side of finding identity through work, but finding different ways to engage them in general, because the reward's not there. The sense of who am I might not be as much there anymore, but there are probably other things that we can start thinking about. I feel like speed is breaking us, and most of the people I talk to are exhausted by that. And then there's optimization. It's boring us. It's not making better products or better marketing campaigns. Executives optimizing my viewing experience isn't really making Netflix better than it was 5 years ago. Exploration inspires and excites me because it's what we need. We need new things right now. We need solutions that have never existed before. And I really think that's where exploration comes in. I mean, we need it in our careers on an individual level. We need it in the marketplace. We don't need to go faster. I'm not inspired by optimizing anything that I'm doing or doing it better. Everything I do is pretty damn good, right? But it is about exploring and experimenting, having those unpolished riffs that you put it out there. And I think that's how you get to the important things. Yeah, so deviate and explore. Those are my predictions. And I think, actually, I know that's going to get you what you need.
I really like how Erica thinks about things. I think she's not afraid to challenge the status quo and just say it as she sees it.
And if you want to hear more of that kind of thinking, go check out her podcast, Trash Talk.
It's so good.
Yeah,
it's so good.
It's very, very good. Or head to her website. We put the link in the show notes. And if you're anywhere near one of her worst kept secrets hour meetups, honestly, just go. I mean, I say honestly, just go. Never been. But
Sounds good. Sounds great.
I'm sure it is brilliant. I'm sure it is.
Yeah, and you'll be hearing more from Erica in the new year. Spoiler alert. Right, on to prediction number 4. After this very quick break, though, yeah, everyone needs a... What day are we on?
Go and get a cuppa.
Yeah.
We don't know. We don't know what date
what
it is.
time is it?
They genuinely don't even know what year it is.
Bailey's?
See you in a second.
Okay, so prediction number 4 comes from Anthony Taylor, and Anthony's got what he calls a bit of a contrarian view.
Anthony's a leadership coach who specialises in helping mid-career professionals rebuild confidence and resilience, particularly after setbacks. He's been through it himself, redundancy 3 times, bounce back every single time. Rubber Tony, they call him in the trade.
He's also all about mental toughness, the ability to stay calm, focused, and decisive when the pressure is relentless. And that's exactly what his prediction is about.
So let's hear Anthony's slightly contrarian take on what's really going to matter in 2026.
I've got a bit of a contrarian view, but I think I'm a contrarian at heart. So I think what I'm going to say might jar with a few other people. But here we go anyway. So my thoughts on AI, everyone's talking about AI. They see it as this big disruptor and everything else. And the way I kind of see it is, yes, partly that, but actually it's a big revealer. So yes, it's like changing the work, but I think what it's really doing is exposing actually the lack of human capability in a lot of our systems. So I think that's going to have a big impact on that. I think how it's going to affect leaders is it's going to find out an awful lot of people that don't have that kind of capability to adapt, to be adaptable, to be able to prioritize, to be able to be calm kind of under pressure because of the pace of change. So I think that's going to have an impact. And I see this a lot. The real revolution is going to be attention. So the scarcest resource that I see in businesses isn't money, and it's not time, although people say it is. It's actually focus. We are asking too much of our people to do too many things at too much pace. And actually, I think for me, the organization's going to get ahead next year, in the next decade, are going to be the ones that learn to ignore a lot of the noise and focus on what really shifts the needle. And I think there is a real, that's where business can learn a lot from sport. You know, the old return, if it ain't making the boat go faster, don't do it. Businesses are going to need to be asking that question every day. What are we doing? We've got the clarity. I also think a couple of things. Middle managers are going to make a comeback. I think for years we've kind of flattened structures. I think we've this big thing on leadership. But actually what we still know, and I think what's been highlighted by the pandemic and therefore this move to working from home and hybrid working, is that people still need guidance. They still need context. They still need structure. And they still need someone who cares enough to ask, are you okay? And to know what's going on with them and to care about them as an individual. And only middle managers can do that because they're the only ones that have that time with them. So I think that's going to be, I think middle managers focusing, I think they're going to become the quiet superpower of organizations. I think the mental health crisis that we've seen in people, the burnout issues, all this talk about resilience, all that kind of stuff is brought about by those factors, a lack of clarity, a lack of focus on the stuff that really shifts the needle and a lack of really good middle managers. So that's what I think what's kind of changing. I think for me, there's some other things that are kind of overrated. I think this sense of purpose in organizations, Samaritans, start with why, all that kind of stuff. I kind of jumped on the bandwagon myself. This is brilliant, it's really useful. But I think what most people want is they want to come somewhere to work that's got that clarity, that's not chaotic. They want someone who has got a boss that's going to listen, so an emphasis on the middle manager, who isn't a dick, who's going to keep their promises. And I think that's what people want. They want to come to work for that. It's all very well having a great big purpose and a why, and that's fine. But without that stuff, people are going to, I think, are really struggling. So I think, that and that kind of the fact that realization that culture is built in a corridor, it's not built on a poster. And quite frankly, it's not built when people are sat in their pajamas working from their back bedroom. You can't build a culture on Teams and online. And we miss that kind of human connection. In terms of what I think leaders should prepare for, I think you spent the last 10 years talking about resilience. I think the new skill is going to be about developing mental toughness. Mental toughness is that ability to manage how we respond mentally to stress, pressure, challenge, and opportunities. But can we stay level despite the hits when the hits keep on coming? So the ability to really develop that mental toughness, not just resilience, kind of bouncing back, because things have moved on. There's no point bouncing back when things have moved on. You're just going to go back to where you were when things have moved forward. So that's going to be a real leadership skill, because that will then impact on other things as well. And I think and I probably touched on it, the craft of middle management, the craft of managing people, of doing the basics really well and moving away from kind of leadership fads, that I think is what leaders kind of need to prepare for next year and in the next decade. There's an article in the news today about teachers in Scotland going on strike because they want an extra 90 minutes of their day back, not in front of the class, so they can do marking and preparation and everything else. That to me is a symptom of the bigger problem in industry. There's too much pressure on everybody to do too many things, to hit too many targets, to achieve growth all the time at what cost? And at the same time, they're burning people out. And it comes down to an absolute lack of clarity about what's going to move the needle. I see people time and time again engaged in stuff, doing reports, doing extra work that is not shifting the needle. And it comes down to a lack of clarity from the top about what do we really want you to do? And that basic conversation and communication about what do I want you to do? I see it so many times with managers who go, I've got a to-do list. And when I finally work with them, coach them to pluck up the courage to go back to the boss and go, right, I've got 10 things here. And you get a boss that's good enough to go, right, just focus on those 3. A lot of the stress melts away and their productivity increases.
I have to say, I really like Anthony's perspective on this, because it's so refreshing to hear someone cut through all of the, come on, we're all friends here, bullshit, and talk about what actually matters day to day.
Yeah, and if you're a mid-career professional who's feeling a bit stuck, burnt out, or like your confidence has just really taken a knock this year, Anthony might be worth talking to. We put his details in the show notes.
And if you like reading, and who doesn't, then he's also got 2 books, The Manager's Code, which is the 4 Habits of Highly Effective Managers, and Mental Toughness Metaphors. It's the one with the knot that looks like a brain. It's such a cool cover image. Go and check those 2 out. And thank you, Anthony, for sending us a free copy.
Yes, thank you very, 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 very much.
Okay, on to our final prediction. It comes from Georgia Mary Hodkinson. She is an organizational psychologist specializing in fatigue, burnout, and performance.
Georgia is currently in stage 2 of her occupational psychology training. She's the founder of Georgia's Psy Work, where she helps organizations prevent burnout and improve performance through psychology-led training.
She's also the Director of Operations and Marketing at the Psychology Business Incubator, or PBI, if you're friends with them, which is, as you know, a global community for psychologists and coaches. Basically, she knows her stuff when it comes to knowing how our brains actually work at work.
Yes, and her prediction is going to challenge everything you think you know about productivity. Let's hear from Georgia.
Clarity is going to become more of a productivity measurement. Right now, everyone's obsessed with time management, but the real bottleneck here is cognitive load, decision friction, and ambiguity. So in 2026, I believe we'll shift from a managing your time to managing what your brain is carrying.
So we obsess over time management. And what you're saying is, let's stop obsessing over time management. Let's start obsessing over clarity management. Why is clarity more important than time?
Because blaming individuals for a burnout when it's actually the system that's causing us issues, it's not going to get us what we need. It's about creating the system that helps human beings more than just time management. When we're working and we're fatigued, our brain already has these shortcuts, but they're exacerbated by our fatigue, our burnouts. So when we become, and I don't like to use the word tired because it's not always a physical tiredness, but it's about an emotional and a physiological way of becoming burnt out. So I would angle this as the lack of clarity is potentially causing us fatigue and burnout in a way that we can't maintain. We're all different. We're all going to begin tasks differently. We're all going to organise our desk differently. But it's about understanding how all these different ways of doing things can affect personality, which is fatigue, performance, communication. So it's about making sure that everybody's catered to. Now that's challenging in an organisation, especially large global ones, because there's so many moving pieces. And that's how I like to think about human beings, is moving pieces, dynamic. So it's about allowing this to paint the picture, to grow, to flourish. So I suppose human factors is the dynamic challenges that are brought on by different people interacting.
Love it. And it's so important, isn't it? And I think it's even more relevant now that AI is becoming such a massive part of our organisations. Are you excited for AI? As a human factors specialist, are you excited or are you nervous?
I want to say both, because I think it's important to stay nervous and I'm going to change that word. I'm going to say it's important to stay curious. It's important to stay questioning whether this is appropriate, whether this is going to either affect me in a positive or negative manner. So always stay curious and always stay skeptical. However, this is a tool that if you use it right, will benefit us. And if you choose not to use it, potentially could be left behind. Yeah, I'm actually doing a training course the end of January with Neil Chester, where we will be discussing unlocking AI but staying human. So in order to keep that human edge in that personable way, but still using it as a tool to improve our adaptability and improve our speed, productivity.
I'm getting the vibe from what you said and your predictions. You're on the hopeful side for 2026. I guess, are you? And if you are, what are you hopeful for? What positive change do you think we're going to see next year?
I like to remain positive, and I do like to remain hopeful, because that does emit things of our personality and wishful thinking. What I am hopeful for is just bringing back these procedures that give us a system that is easier to work with. And I suppose this relates to the 5-day working week research. The weekend was designed how many centuries ago, whereas we're evolving now to a very different world. Now, do these systems need challenging? And my answer would be yes. And the further we go, the more that we challenge this dynamic system, or build a more efficient dynamic system for us to interact with.
I love how Georgia frames this, that it's not about working harder or faster. It's about understanding what our brains are actually dealing with. And that whole shift to clarity is just delicious.
Yep. And if you like that kind of thing, then you are going to like Georgia's brilliant training program. Not draining. No, there's nothing to do with draining. It's all about training. She's Lee, I'm being serious here. I'm plugging a course. She's actually running a course at the end of January with Neil Chester called Unlocking AI, but Staying Human.
Which just feel extra relevant now, given all the predictions we've heard today. We put links to George's work and the Psychology Business Incubator in the show notes.
I'll also make sure our personal website goes in those show notes. Okay, Lee, who's next?
Right, we've got one more prediction for you, and this one is a bit of a mic drop moment, Alistair.
Yeah, we actually did use the words mic drop. Can't remember whether I left it in the edit or not. I can't remember. This comes from Josh Levine, who's the host of Great Mondays Radio and the author of Great Mondays. Josh thinks that how we find work and how we hire, the whole system, it is just broken.
He is particularly focused on this idea of what he calls shitification of the job market. AI is degrading the quality of applications. Recruiters are overwhelmed trying to find real people. And the resume, well, Josh actually thinks it's on its last legs.
So let's hear Josh's prediction about what's going to replace the traditional CV-driven job market, because if he's right, this is going to change everything.
The job market is, I was going to say slowly but surely, but fastly but surely becoming enshittified. So the book Enshittification came out in 2025, and we're seeing that in the job market. AI is just degrading the quality of the applications and the resumes as we try to pattern match or keyword match. I don't know if you've experimented with some of those resume revision AI websites. And you put in the job listing and you're like, here, make sure you have this thing. And then on the other side, you have an overwhelmed hiring manager or recruiter who is trying to find a real person that's not AI or a bot or someone who's qualified. And the truth of the matter is we're circling towards the bottom of the barrel. And I feel like we are almost gratefully at the end of the life of the resume. The resume is a two-dimensional offshoot or detritus of our three-dimensional experience, and it just does not work any longer. And so when we think about the expansion of our presence on LinkedIn, is one step. We have portfolios. So I graduated as a designer with a portfolio, and now we have more than just designers with portfolios. We've got everybody that has their own pages of writing and experiences and projects, which is wonderful. That's a great use of the web. Even better, we need those people that we've worked with to bring us along, and for us to bring them along, we need to build and continue to invest in relationships so that we can demonstrate, best of all, right? So if your resume is 3 jumps away from what you actually do, and your LinkedIn portfolio or your LinkedIn page is 2, right? You get a little more space to kind of add in some assets. And then your website is 1 jump away of like, here's how I present myself. Here is my brand. The real of it is when you work with somebody and you have done a good job, you have demonstrated that you are capable and thoughtful and provide value to an organization and a team, that is the best case for you to get your next job. And because all those folks are going to be moving along at some point, you either need them or they need you. You're going to, get the band back together. And that is what you want, is to increase the opportunities for those kinds of experiences and collisions so that you have a network of trusted peers who really understand your value. Then we can get out of the resume of the CV game, because that is a losing game. I'm sure many of your listeners have experienced this looking for work, and it's just like punching yourself in the face every time you apply. We need to change the way we're doing things because it just doesn't work. And that is where I believe we're going to start. I think next year, it's kind of the instigating moment for my prediction is we're going to see a collapse of the resume-driven job market. And hopefully after that, we will see other assets, other ways, other tools to really bring together the best of the best. And maybe that's even already happening in the kind of niche community job or Slack channels or, Discord channels, right? There's all the things about the unlisted jobs. It's those people that that can validate or can vouch for you, that are going to get you that next job. That's what I think we're going to see next year. And I actually am excited to see the death of the resume finally.
If you didn't have such a beautiful mic, I would encourage you to rip it off and drop it on the floor, because that is a mic moment there.
Mic drop. Boom.
This actually got me kind of excited. I did really like this. And fun fact is that Josh and I spoke for about 15 minutes before this. And then he just went, before I go, I've got this idea, dropped it. And I was like, yes, this is amazing. The death of the resume. I think I'm for it.
I'm going to have to professionally decline from having an opinion on that. But Josh does make a compelling case for why relationships and demonstrating the value are going to matter more than just a two-dimensional document that doesn't really show what you can do anyway.
Most two-dimensional documents, not the ones that...
A good resume written by a professional organisation is likely to demonstrate those relationships and value.
If you want to hear more from Josh, check out Great Mondays Radio. You can find it wherever you're listening to this right now. And his website is greatmondays.com. Talking of great domain names, he didn't pay that much money for it, but he still secured it a few years ago. Well done, Josh. We're going to put all the links in the show notes.
I love that that's what you just asked somebody about. Josh, before you go, can I just ask you, how much did your domain cost?
I did.
I know, I'm sure you did. Don't doubt it. It's just weird.
I am very, very strange.
So there we have it, 6 predictions for 2026. Some about AI, some about how we work, all pointing to some pretty significant shifts ahead. Part 2 is coming on New Year's Day, the 1st of January. We are your hangover buddies. If you haven't subscribed, then maybe that can be your first New Year's resolution, eh?
Yeah, and we will talk very quietly. We'll do an ASMR version.
We'll bring a different energy.
If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you haven't enjoyed it, then please share why to us privately. Don't put it on the internet. Nobody needs to know your thoughts if they're negative. By the way, what are your predictions for the year ahead? Go on to LinkedIn, find Leanne, or me if you want, because I'm starting to do a bit more stuff on LinkedIn. But search for Leanne Elliott and go and tell her what you think the predictions are for this year ahead. Because if you're right, then we might ask you next year to come on the show. If you're wrong, well, we will just...
We might still ask you to come on the internet because we've never got it right. Who are we?
Publicly humiliate you.
Anyway, this is Truth, Lies and Work. We'll see you on Thursday. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.